Well, hello. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. Welcome back. I have a lot of books to talk about. Um, why? Well, I've been neglecting all my other duties. I haven't done much. I haven't done anything in the garden, and it's time to start the garden cleanup. But it's spider season here in the Pacific Northwest, and you can't walk through the yard without getting hit with spider webs. And normally, they're normal spiders, but we have some honkers in the yard. My husband and I found, we have one on the side of the house. Its web is huge, and it's huge. And I'm gonna wait until the temperatures cool and the spiders go away. So I'm reading a lot right now, knitting a lot, finishing up some projects, so all that's good. So let me hop into the books because I have 4 to talk about this week. It feels like a lot. Let me start with The Lover by Marguerite Duras. So this was a buddy read with Lindy over at Magpie Reads and Louise, one of her subscribers. And this is, I think what everybody knows about this is that it's very autobiographical and that it's about a 15-year-old girl who has an affair with a wealthy 27-year-old Chinese man in Saigon. This is in the 30s, so this is at the time that Vietnam is a French colony. And so, you've got the taboo of their age difference, her incredibly young age. Also that she's white and he's Chinese, and he's wealthy and she's poor. So there are these interesting sort of power dynamics there. Some of the writing in here is fantastic, some of the imagery, but then there's others where it's like, what? Everybody, no one is referred to by name. It's he, she, we, they. And so sometimes when she's referring to one of her brothers, you're not sure which one. There was a moment she's talking about a woman in town, and I thought it was her mother. So this could be kind of confusing. People seem to love this book, and it did win the Prix Goncourt in 1984. And I'm missing what's so great about this book. It feels all over the place. She'll be talking about her tempestuous relationship with her mother, and then it'll be jumping to her brother, and then it'll be talking about school, and then it'll be talking about the Chinese man. It's all over the place, and it can be hard to follow because the subject jumps around, but it can also jump around in time. So suddenly she's referring to, school, and then suddenly she's talking about when she's an adult. So I just felt like what Duras was trying to do and say just constantly felt just a little bit out of reach. And I think I described this book to Louise and Lindy a few times as just opaque. So not exactly a great experience. Thankful that I did it as a buddy read because I probably would have DNF'd otherwise. So Louise and Lindy kept it interesting for me. Then I picked up Howard Norman's new book, Come to the Window. I've read a few of Norman's books. All of his books are about, or take place in Nova Scotia, often in Halifax, but he's American, so I'm not quite sure why that is. But this is in 1918, so it opens with the trial of a woman who has shot her husband on her wedding night and has placed the gun in the blowhole of a beached whale. So we know she did it, but we don't know why. So part of it is the mystery of why. And I won't say anything more about that. But we also have mixed in here is the story of Toby Havamshaw, who is a reporter for the Halifax Evening Mail, and so he's sent to report on this trial. And so he sort of gets immersed in her story in this case. It's 1918, so we also have the Spanish flu hitting Nova Scotia, and we also have Toby's wife, who has returned to Nova Scotia from World War I, functioning as a surgeon. I love Howard Norman's writing. There's something very direct, gentle about his prose. It's got a little bit of a hug to it, but he also can throw in just this really dry humor. And so his dialogue can often just be kind of a delight to read. And really the heart and soul of this book is the interactions between Toby and his wife Amelia, and their care for one another, their love for one another, just their everyday conversations, their banter. You know, that's really the pleasure to be found in this book, is just observing their relationship. The mystery is also kind of fun and interesting. So, you know, it's a short book. I enjoy it, but again, I have a soft spot for Howard Norman's writing. It's a quiet book. It's a gentle book. So, you know, if that kind of appeals to you, it does sort of have these autumn vibes to me too. Something about Halifax. Oh my God, we've got squirrels attacking one another over there. If that sort of book appeals to you for the fall, give this one a go. Hum by Helen Phillips. Somehow dystopian always appeals to me in the fall. This is about a family of 4 in the unspecified near future, where we definitely have climate change, and we have more AI, and we have robots are called hums in this world, and the hums do a lot of sort of the mundane work, you know, the garbage collection, the, you know, customer service, you know, a lot of the entry-level work. And so this book starts with the mother, May, losing her job as a result of, you know, basically obsolescence due to Hums being able to take over. And her husband basically does, it's sort of like DoorDash, except it's service jobs. So it's like, you know, he hires himself out for random tasks. So like, can you come over and clean out my closets? Come over and, you know, place the mouse traps. Can you come over and wash windows? Can you, you know, random things. And this is how the family is sort of struggling to get by. And so May decides to get face surgery. She's getting paid an awful lot of money to have her face altered to avoid detection, identification from Hums and all of the surveillance cameras that are all around. And so she gets this boatload of money, and so she books the family for a 3-day trip to the botanical gardens in the city, which is, you know, this Shangri-La, right? It's incredibly expensive. So access to nature, to plants, to animals, birds, it comes at a cost. You know, they stay in this little cottage, and, you know, the kids can actually run barefoot in grass and, you know, and have these experiences. What I really liked about this book is the urban decay. You know, it's very subtle, but in all the scenes, you know, she'll be talking about, you know, cracks in the sidewalk with weeds poking through, going by a building and there's a plastic bag stuck in the tree. Or they're constantly monitoring air quality. You know, just pieces of dirt and grit and plastics everywhere. I really liked sort of that tense, dirty atmosphere that she creates. The main plot element here in this is when they're in the botanical gardens, the children briefly go missing. And that suddenly really speeds up the tempo of this book, resolving that, you know, what happened to the kids, and then the aftermath of that in this surveillance state. So I loved that atmosphere she created. I also loved Hum as the title, and these hums. She does give this sense that technology is omnipresent. Again, the hums are walking around, they're interacting with people all the time. There's surveillance cameras everywhere. There's, you know, everything that they need to do on their phones. And then the kids have constantly strapped to their wrists a device called bunnies. You know, that's the technology they're obsessed with. And then everybody has in their bedroom what's called a womb, WOOM, that's like their own little personal virtual reality pod. So the pervasiveness of technology and how this family, in some ways, they don't interact with each other. They're clued into their technology. I really liked that. And then the other thing I really loved is, again, when you interact with a hum, you know, it'll interrupt whatever conversation you're having to say, your skin looks dry. May, would you like some moisturizer that is targeted for women your age? Say yes if you approve this transaction. I First of all, that's like my worst nightmare, is like the advertising in your face all the time. And if you want to turn it off, you have to pay money. Like, that is a future that I can so believe is happening. So I really loved the world that Helen Phillips creates. And it just, yeah, this turned into just a really propulsive, enjoyable read for me. So, and last but not least is my audiobook, Smothermoss by Alisa Alering. I want to say I heard about this from Sarah over at Eyes on Indie. I think this was in one of her newsletters. This is sort of gothic, supernatural fairy tale vibe. So we've got Angie and Sheila, who are two sisters living in a remote area of Appalachian, Pennsylvania. And this takes place in the 80s. So they're dealing with sort of rural poverty, bullying from kids. They sort of subsistence living on what they can forage, what they can grow. They raise rabbits for food. And sort of the struggles that they have are compounded when two girls are brutally murdered on the Appalachian Trail, which is very close to their property. So Angie, the younger sister, becomes a little obsessed with finding who murdered these girls. And she's obsessed with, like, this is the 80s, so she's obsessed with Rambo and like preparing for like Russian invasion. And she makes these tarot cards that she draws her own monsters, and she carries these around, and sometimes sort of the tarot cards communicate with her. And then Sheila is older. She, in addition to sort of struggling with being poor and sort of ostracized and having to care for Angie in a lot of ways, she has this rope tied around her neck that nobody else can see. And she gets a job with her mother at the local psychiatric asylum for the summer, and starts to interact with a boy at the asylum that nobody else can see. So I love the atmosphere of this book. I love atmosphere. It's oppressive. The poverty is just sort of grinding. The woods feel slightly malicious. The mountain that they live on is almost a character in this book that can be sort of capricious, can be sort of a good force or a bad force in their lives. everything's a little bit menacing in this book. And then um, something else there's a timelessness aspect to this book. It's hard to remember that it takes place in the 80s because they are often, they do laundry by hand. They don't have a shower. They have to use a bathtub that they fill by hand. Um, so so, as a reader, it can be sort of disorienting. Um, to when this is happening, and you keep kind of forgetting. And I think that adds to sort of the disorientation and menace of the tone of this whole book. I really liked it. And again, the pacing again can really pick up at the end. So there is, what happened to the women gets resolved. And again, it's just these supernatural elements really create this fairy tale vibe. So I really, really had fun with this book and really enjoyed it. So those are the 4 things that I read this week. I just finished listening to Smothermoss. So I just started listening to God in the Woods by Liz Moore. And I need to pick up, I just finished Hum, so I need to pick up a physical book. I'm probably going to get started on the Rape of Europa for Framed, but I also want to pick up for Shorty September, The Most, by Jessica Anthony. And I put this on hold, this came in, and then boom, just got longlisted for the National Book Award. So I'm feeling very hip that I am going to read this and be part of the buzz. All right, I hope you all are doing well, and catch you next week, probably from Florida. All right, bye.